Yeah, so my kind of question is if these are as damaging as we think they are, and I think we're both pretty confident that they're going to be damaging. We just don't really know the degree yet. They could be really, really bad. They might just be bad. But the court is going to have to read through these emails or for in-camera review on some level and kind of see what's going on here. So I guess my question is kind of moving to whether we're going to go to summary judgment or we're going to settle. If the SEC knows they're handing over these emails that could possibly say the things we're speculating on, how could they confidently go into summary judgment and the court looking at these emails and saying, well, right here, you prove that you had no idea what XRP was. So how could Ripple have known what XRP was back in 2013 when their only legal advice from anyone was a law firm saying you should be good?
Yeah, so that branches off into a couple of different aspects. And you have to keep in mind that there are a lot of different legal theories that are going on in this case at once. And an answer on one doesn't necessarily end the whole case. And an answer on another one does end the whole case. So, just for example, if XRP is held to be not a security by the court, fair notice, marketing, all that stuff doesn't even matter because XRP is not a security. It can't be an unregistered securities offering. On the fair notice defense, if the court says, hey, Ripple did not have fair notice, and you can't punish them for everything that happened back in time, that doesn't change the fact that she could still rule that XRP is a security going forward. So, she could say, hey, Ripple wins on fair notice, but that only protects everything from when it started until today. It could still be a security going forward, and, then that's still a big problem there. So those emails really come into play with the fair notice defense. And even however terrible they are, technically, it doesn't necessarily go to the legal issue of whether it's a security or not. Because even though the SEC emails, everything comes out and says we have no idea, it doesn't look like a secure. Well, I mean, it could help because if the if all those emails are definitively, and then there's the XRP memo, which probably says it could be, it might not be. That's kind of how all legal memos are. Then the court would say, oh, geez, well, they even had a memo saying it's not a security. Ripple says it's not a security for all these reasons. So it does go into that. But, if it's just the fair notice defense issue, it only addresses what's in the past, not what's going to happen in the future.
So I think kind of what you're saying here is because the fair notice really has to do with whether Ripple knew what they were doing was wrong or not. It doesn't really have any implications on the underlying issue of is XRP a security, yes or no. Because whether Ripple knew what they were doing was right or wrong, I mean, even if they didn't know what they were doing was wrong, but the court came down later and said, all right, you didn't know, but XRP is a security, those could be different issues when you look at it like that. Now, I'm not sure how you could package XRP into a security today because it's very obviously significantly decentralized. And in my opinion, Ripple's best argument here is simply that if the SEC wins this case, they claim, yes, XRP is a security of Ripple. And then Ripple tomorrow went away and XRP was still trading on the market with value. Is the SEC going to get together and then say, okay, now this person XRP is a security of? It doesn't seem like that really works. So I'm wondering, it seems like almost if they have to amend their current laws to make it work, it seems like it's probably not a security.
I mean, I agree that it's not a security. There are the way it's going to come down is how does the court view cryptocurrency in general in the securities framework? And basically, I mean, there's a lot of things at the margins, and there's a lot of cases crypto cases where you can say, okay, yeah, that is definitely a security. And again, there's a lot where I think, okay, that's definitely not. But if you want to jam crypto in the securities framework and the investment contracts framework, I think it's an incredibly weak argument, but there's an argument that can be made. So it's just kind of, at the end of the day, is a court going to try and jam it into that framework? Again, I think it's low possibility. with, as a general matter, especially with XRP, because it doesn't hit all of the four elements. But that is the risk. And again, I think it's a low risk. But I think the SEC thinks that because and I don't think, well, I don't know enough about everything everyone's doing on the XRPL, but obviously Ripple is working, very heavily with XRP, and they are a big driver of getting it used. And, they are trying to do a lot of decentralized things with like the donations to the gamers, to the other developers on there. I think the SEC is thinking that, hey, if we get Ripple hit with the security on this one and they go away, then the XRPL eventually dies. And, whether that happens or not, let's hope we never have to find out.
Yeah, well, I think that's a very interesting perspective and kind of one of the biggest issues here, because I see what you're saying about jamming it into the current securities regulation, because, I mean, if you're just not going to make new regulations for these things, at the end of the day, it has to either go to the CFTC or the SEC if you're not going to create a new regulatory body, at least for the bulk of what's going on here. My opinion was that they make a lot more sense as a commodity. But, I mean, if they choose to jam pack it into the SEC's jurisdiction, I guess that's what happens. I guess the biggest issue is the SEC coming out and saying, all right, well, this one's good, not as security, this one's good, and then XRP is, and having zero logical explanation on why that's the case. I mean, I look at something like Ethereum, and I'm just like, this is so much more of a security than XRP, so how is it fair that if Ripple and XRP have to abide by all these security laws and then Ethereum wouldn't? And I think the SEC is already backtracking on that, but I think their Ethereum statement is kind of what's really screwing them over going forward on trying to get access to this industry or power over it.
Yeah, and let me first say that there are dozens, if not hundreds, of cases, and this is completely outside the security context, where the court will say something to the extent of, let's see, how should I put this? The party is claiming that, this issue before the court shouldn't be regulated under this legislative framework because it's something else. And then the court goes on to say, well, it doesn't really fit under this legislative framework, and there's a lot of reasons why it shouldn't be. Nevertheless, it's Congress's job to write legislation that would cover this new thing. So until Congress does that, we're going to keep it under the legislative framework. And again, there's case after case after case that says that, not in the crypto context, in every single aspect of law. And that is the court saying, hey, listen, we're not going to make, and some judges will make quote unquote new law, but a lot of judges won't. They'll say, listen, we're not going to make new law with this decision. If you want to make new law, Congress, you do it. And they purposely will do something very unsatisfying to the followers of the case to kind of put the pressure on Congress to say, you fix this. It's not our job to fix it. So again, I don't think that's going to happen with the Ripple case, but that's a possibility the judges do. They say, hey, listen, Congress, you got to fix this mess. We're not going to do it for you. I forgot what else you wanted me to answer in that question.
Oh, that's fine. I forgot to. You kind of got me thinking on something else where you said the court will make a decision to make Congress do something, essentially. That's kind of one of those original thoughts I had with this case in general, because something I have a really hard time getting my head around is how poorly the SEC has brought this case with the amount of time they had to build up to it. You would think they would, things would be going a little better for them. I kind of expected things to not be going this well for Ripple thus far. And I know we haven't seen all the evidence, but it seems like right now the SEC has been on their heels with this thing. So do you think it's possible that the SEC brought this case to wake up Congress and say, hey, there is no way we can factually say, or there is no rules based on what these things are. Bring this lawsuit, bring attention to everything, and then kind of stir Congress into action. We have seen more action out of Congress since it started, but definitely no significant action.
Yeah, and I go back and forth on the motives of the SEC on this one. And that's a great question that we just can only speculate on and not know the answer to. There's a couple different things that push me in a certain direction. First, I think that the SEC wanted to do a power grab. There were probably discussions behind the scenes with CFTC and SEC. I mean, and this isn't unique to those two. There's turf wars in the federal government all the time. You know, I usually sue the VA when I'm suing the federal government. And, you know, you see turf wars between different VA regional administrators, the Department of Justice, who has to defend the case, the low-level quote unquote adjusters that, you know, try and negotiate settlements with me. So there's a turf war going on, and SEC says, all right, you know, we got to stake out our turf. You know, that's one aspect. Two, you know, a lot has changed since even the Ripple case was brought. You know, SEC is trying to go out and grab some turf. And since then, they've also learned that their turf's going to shrink no matter what with that executive order. So the executive order that came out, you know, it was helpful. It didn't really say too much. It was just everybody get together and come up with a game plan. But it was specific, saying, hey, here's everybody that's going to be involved. So because there were multiple agencies involved, every single agency is going to say, we get a piece. So now they all have to fight over how they're going to get a piece. And so now the SEC can use Ripple to say, well, if legally, you know, it turns out Ripple's a security, then we get more of a piece. And that could hurt them the other way, because if it comes out the wrong way for them, then they'll lose leverage negotiating with the other agencies. So, you know, that's one aspect of it. The other aspect is, and I had a great thread back and forth with attorney Bill from Australia on this one. It's a, April 23rd chain where he kind of breaks down, and we're in two opposite camps, the motives of the SEC and how based on the motives, there could be, you know, different outcomes. So what I think personally is that the SEC did this to completely kneecap Ripple and to try and take them out for the benefit of the people who did the lawsuit, you know, their clients that they went to work for right after that. You know, they were told, get rid of Ripple. They're too much of a competitor. And, you know, we got to either take them out or slow them down. That's my thought process. And, you know, because of that, that's why I think settlement has increased based on the scheduling order change that happened. I can get into that too, if you want, but I think that it has to be decided by the court. We have to get through to summary judgment because the SEC has gone, you know, too deep down the rabbit hole. They didn't think things were going to blow up in their face. They didn't think Ripple was going to fight it all the way. You know, they thought they were going to be able to scare them by basically saying, your whole company is going to die if you don't do what we say and take this crappy settlement terms. And Ripple said, no, we're just going to fight you all the way. And now the SEC's racked up so many losses, they're kind of stuck and they can't get out because, you know, real quickly, people talk about, well, can't the SEC just dismiss the case and then bring it later? And the answer is no, because under the rules of civil procedure, you can only dismiss a case on your own very early in the case without a judge without the other side having to agree. So if they were going to just straight up dismiss the case right now, they would have to have Ripple agree to that. Ripple would never agree because they don't want to get sued again for the same thing. They've already put in maybe $50 million in legal fees at this point. That could be too high, maybe like 25 to 50 million, but And the judge, even if they both agree, the judge probably would say, no, we're going to finish this. So they can't dismiss it. They don't want to lose the battle and say XRP is not a security in a settlement. And I just think they have to go all the way to summary judgment and have a judge actually make a determination. You know, Bill takes a different approach. And, you know, there's a lot of attorneys in his camp that say, hey, there's much more strategy decisions going on. There's much more, you know, I don't know if good faith is the word, but there's much more settlement discussions like a normal lawsuit would go. And there is going to be much more of a settlement because, you know, 95% of cases settle. I just don't think that's the motivation behind the SEC. I think they're purposely targeting Ripple and going after them because, you know, at the end of the day, if it was really a settlement, you know, and I've said this out on Twitter before, Ripple's got 45 billion XRP still in escrow. I mean, if Ripple went up to $1, all they have to do is get rid of, you know, 1-2% of their XRP holdings, give it to the SEC. That's $1 billion, $2 billion, one of the biggest fines that SEC would take, why not just do that and have the clarity XRP is not a security? So I mean, it's a lot of money, but I think Ripple would gladly do it for clarity. And you know, the fact that it hasn't, which is why I think it's the motivation of the SEC.
Well, they could stage that pretty interestingly too, because if they ended the case and you saw XRP hit a $5 to $10 range, suddenly the SEC could get a nice little payday, and then the payment would happen after the price spiked up. So the SEC could kind of configure something where they could get a nice little boost there. I mean, if you're looking at a $5 to $10 XRP, Ripple claims they have 100 billion XRP on their balance sheet. I mean, I see it as they have $45 billion. That puts Ripple at a valuation based on cash alone, and XRP, I would say, is a lot more useful than cash. I mean, that puts them at a $50 billion company. You said something interesting earlier before about the turf war. One interview that I found a while ago that kind of opened my eyes to... It's such an interesting position. Like, there's so many things that make this look like a deliberative attack, and there's so many things that you look at and you're like, oh, this was positioned like this such a long time ago. But Gary Gensler was in an interview on Bloomberg back when he was at the CFTC, and the interviewer said, hey, what agency is going to look over crypto? And he says, it could be the CFTC, it could be the SEC, but all we have to do is bring it into compliance, because until it comes into compliance, big money won't be able to enter the industry. Now, that does not sound like something he would even remotely consider saying today, but it really got me thinking. That is completely on the stage of the power grab. If he was at the CFTC right now, he'd probably be making the same arguments to take control over crypto from the CFTC, and we wouldn't be looking at the security thing. So I saw that, and that's the kind of thing that makes me think, all right, well, this is just all a play to bring clarity to the market. But then you look at some of the things going behind the scenes, and you're like, this was a deliberate attack against Ripple. Like, how could this not be seen as an attack? So it's really hard to analyze the motives, because you're constantly looking at these different things, and it does look like you could fit it into either, and it's hard to see them kind of both working together in the same place.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, and you're dead on. If Gensler was still chair of the CFTC, these are clearly not securities.
Yeah, right. That's what you'd be saying.
Yeah, I mean, he exactly, 100% exactly. So it's a turf war. So you can kind of harmonize it a little bit. The two different motives is because almost like a get two birds with one stone type thing. Because okay, we want to kneecap and take out Ripple, and by doing that, we're going to, SEC's mindset, not my mindset, but we're going to win. It's going to be a security, and we're going to have the landmark case to say all these other things are securities going forward. So we get some regulatory clarity. We take out Ripple, and, it's a great day. So that's one way to harmonize that. You can get the regulatory clarity by taking out your enemy. And I think that could be, that's definitely one potential path.
Yeah, no, based on the things we've seen, I think that is probably where I'm leaning to for the most likely thing that for what happened so far. But it is kind of crazy seeing all this stuff come out and trying to figure out the motives, because getting behind the SEC's motives might be one of the hardest things I've ever attempted to do.